Okay, round one of my little vintage bike experiment. I'm using that term fairly loosely, and I'll talk about how I'm framing that throughout the ride. I just wanted to test a few things, so I'm not sure if I'm going to count this one. I haven't been riding much. It's about my third ride this year, so I'm probably going to ride myself into a little bit of fitness. So I've started off on a bike that I think is probably the fastest. Good old Dave, and it's very pretty out here. This is a road that leads to Caister. So, what have I got? I've got the camera mounted right on the front on the handlebars. I was really hoping that it would kind of get maybe a bit of the handlebars and my hands as well. At the moment, I can assure you I am on a bike. I haven't just mounted it on the front of my car. Yeah, but anyway, I might muck around with that a little bit as I test out. And I've been using, there's a roundabout about 6 miles away. And I've been coming at it from a slightly different angle, and I forgot this bit. I forgot that the road surface here, it's not amazing. I'm in Norfolk, but like it's a little bit better, and probably the road's a bit wider. There's a little less opportunity for cars to kind of stop and all of that stuff. So I thought it'd probably give me a better experiment. What stats have I got? I've got gradient. That's pretty much pointless. There's a few points where it'll be about a -1 or a -2. Oh, you saw a finger. See, definitely on a bike. Oh man. And kilometers per hour, because some of you might work in that. Every mile it's going to put an average. I've asked it to do an average of miles per hour and kilometres per hour, but it won't make any sense when it does the average of the kilometres per hour, so maybe it won't. Anyway, we shall see. I can't quite remember what I asked it to do. So let's talk through the bike. Equally as well, I sort of wanted to experiment before I talk about the bike. I wanted to sort of experiment when I've been doing sort of races. There's a bit more to talk about because there's people around. Hello. That's the first near miss. Anyway, yeah, and at parkrun, you know, there's a bit more to sort of comment on. So I don't know if this would be like a little bit boring. That's why I've done this 3 times, testing where I should put the camera. And the first one, I had it on like this little chest strap, on like a makeshift chest strap, but that didn't really work. I couldn't get it angled up enough. I think I might go back to that because I've got like an old GoPro chest strap that I used to use. Then I tried it on the helmet. I think that might be the one to go with, because there's a bit where it's a bit frustrating where I go over this little bridge, and right and left with just like a quick glance you can see some of the beautiful Norfolk Broads, so I missed that. You're going to see a little bit of me being like a Jedi Knight as well, because yeah, there's probably more potholes than is, yeah, I can't switch off. It's definitely keeping me on my toes. There's loads and loads of those little drain holes as well. But anyway, that's cycling in the UK, isn't it? Right, should we talk through the bike? 1 mile, 21. Oh yeah, I should say this out section towards the roundabout, there was pretty much a sort of full-on headwind. I think it's coming slightly from the left, but yeah, pretty much full-on. So I'd rather have it that way. What sort of effort am I putting into this? I'd say I started off with a kind of not very conservative, but fairly conservative. Sadly, if you watched my parkrun video yesterday, you'll see that my pulse goes up to 202, and I'm pretty sure my Garmin pulse is broken, because I looked down on my pulse throughout this and it was up in 220 and stuff like that, which is obviously nonsense. So I'm going to get myself a little arm strap. Anyway, talk about the fucking bike, Jason. So I've got Dave Lloyd. It's a steel. I think it must be Columbus steel. I don't know a huge amount. I'm not like a massive vintage bike nerd. The reason I started riding vintage bikes was I got really disillusioned by the progress of cycling technology. It seemed that every time I bought something that was like up to date, that it would be out of date within a year, and then you just get in this cycle of you think that you have to spend loads and loads of money on a bike, and I got really into sort of just going on eBay and buying like old vintage parts and building them up into different kind of bikes. and I kind of wanted to see, like, and I test it over 10 miles and 25-mile time trials just to see how much slower it would be. And it's definitely slower. That's my primary excuse in cycling, but not as much as you'd think. That said, I've never ridden, I haven't ridden a modern bike, so like probably the most modern I go back to is about 2010, so maybe maybe I need to test that theory and borrow one. Actually, that would make a good thing, wouldn't it? I'm going to ask one of my friends if I can borrow one of their bikes to do an out and back on this, and just see if having like disc brakes and hidden, all of that stuff does that chain stuff, and maybe having a chain that works, because I can't get my top gear. It's really annoying. Out wasn't an issue. Coming back, it's really, really annoying. I changed wheels basically. I had decided, because I'm going to bring a look into the mix. In the video I did, you can search for it. I've got 3 bikes. I've got my Dave Lloyd, and I will get round to talking about it in a second. Isn't this beautiful as well? Look at the blossom and all that. Anyway, then I've got my Brian Rourke, my beautiful Brian Rourke. Then I've got my Chaz Roberts, and I couldn't remember the name in the video that I did, but it's a Chaz Roberts. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, because it's got R on the front, and that's a track fixie, and I absolutely love that bike. But I think I'm going to ride them in that order as well, because I've got I think Chaz is lovely, but it's probably going to be the slower bike, but you never know. Depends on the conditions, depends on how many cars are coming past me, depends on how I'm feeling. I did a 7-mile run this morning, so it was fairly slow. Who knows? I'm going to try and do them all on Sunday afternoon. It's going to be my thing for Sunday afternoon. Right, anyway, talk about the bike. So Dave Lloyd, got it off eBay, the frame for, I think, about £100. The Spinergy Rev X wheels, I've noticed they've gone up in value, so presumably as there's less of them available, they've gone up in value. I've got like 6 of them in my garage, and I bought them like 10 years ago, most of them, and the ones on my bike probably cost, I don't know, about 100, 150, something like that. So what else? The chain set is Super Records, and I've just got a single chain ring on there, with a little makeshift chain guard. Bars are just a standard, like bog standard old vintage ones. The brakes are super sexy. They're the old ones with like holes in. There's probably a name for that. Again, like £10 or something. But my point is, I think the whole build, like probably the most expensive part, is the Veloflex Record tubular tyres, which I'm pretty sure they would have cost 90 quid each, something I vaguely remember they were about 90 quid. So what's that? That's 180, 280, 380. I reckon the whole build conservatively is under £600. So that's why I like vintage bikes. I'm using that term fairly loosely. I'm aware that there's different people that will sort of have different ways that they will describe a vintage bike. Brian Rourke, the frame that I'm going to be using at some point, that was made probably about 11 years ago, so, but it's sort of vintage sympathetic, and probably actually 11 years ago is getting towards what we could agree. It's steel and all of those sorts of things. Anyway, I'll talk about that when I get into that one. Absolutely love the Spinergy wheels. They make this wonderful like whirring sound. There's a lot of sort of talk about them exploding when people have gone over potholes. So I found them fairly well, obviously they've never exploded. What we got, 22.5 for that mile as well. That's all right. It's pretty, I would say. Maybe in these I need to do, so it's a proper experiment, I sort of need to do a how knackered was I, how hard did I try, and a kind of an adjustment for the conditions. I'd say the conditions are like an 8 out of 10. I did the marathon last week, so I wouldn't say I'm feeling particularly brilliant, but I'm not feeling like massively knackered. I can always like bang out a fairly decent 10. And I had no idea, like my PB for a 10, and this is all on vintage bikes, is actually on the Brian Rourke, interestingly. But again, I just don't think times are always comparable. I just know there's some days you turn up and you literally feel like there's no air resistance, and you could be on like a grifter or something and you'd be flying along, whereas other days you could be on like a 15 grand modern bike, and it feels like there's just a wall of wind no matter which way you're facing. So yeah, what is it? On this bike, I haven't done many 10-mile time trials on this bike. I think probably it's something like a low 23 perhaps, and that's always been on the drops. I don't really like using aero bars anymore. I might have to get over myself for Norwich Triathlon and that one. So yeah, so I'm fairly sort of happy with this. I'd say I'm sort of banging out 20s, 21s. Yeah, that's probably about right, given the I wouldn't say the headwind was that severe. When you need more open sections like this, I'm feeling it, but you can see as well there's a fairly good stream of traffic sort of offsetting it. And I was thinking, do I have to blur out the number plates? And I was thinking, no, it's like a dash cam, isn't it? And you can't actually see them as well. So I thought that's going to be a real ball ache if I have to I don't know what the law is on that, I haven't checked that. Yeah, so anyway, it's a bit like having my own private dash cam for eventually when, I really don't like cycling anymore, and part of that is the North Norfolk roads are so busy with especially this time of year, you start to get lots of holiday traffic, and it's everyone's right to be on the road, but it's very rare I go out cycling and I don't have one person hooting me for riding in a straight line. Maybe I shouldn't open that can of worms. What we got? 21 for mile 4. So I think in a little while there's a slight gradient, but it really isn't particularly high. Interesting, actually. I was getting out of the saddle a fair amount. I was trying to keep sort of the cadence up. And as I was getting out of the saddle, I thought, oh, you'll be able to see when I'm doing this, but I don't think you can much. No. And also, my mate Johnny, he's been telling me about some wattage pedals, so I'm going to get some of those, I think, in a few weeks, because I think as a metric, the Strava watts are absolute bollocks. I know I used to train in a gym with a watt bike, and I presume that's fairly accurate. And I sort of know what I would do over about an hour on the watt bike, and I tested it on lots of the different watt bikes, so it wasn't like one was biased or anything, and I think I got up to an hour at 300 watts or something really frustrating, 299, and then I think my 20-minute, there's a name for that, someone will be able to tell me, FP, something like that. It's that 20-minute test. I think it was 340. Don't know. That might be a lie. Don't know. I'd have to check my Strava. Anyway, yeah. So I quite like watts as a metric, but whenever I come back off of a ride, the 4 rides I do each year, I just hate cycling so much. This isn't great. This is not very inspiring. A cycling video. Oh shit, we've gone down to the 19s, 19.5. I think, yeah, this is about as close as it gets to a gradient. I think it's sort of a bit of a false flat. It's a real drag. Whenever I'm out on sort of a training ride, and even if I've got a tailwind here, this part of the road is really annoying. You really feel the road's sort of sticking to you. It's interesting, actually. I thought the gradient would be a tiny bit more perhaps, but yeah, maybe there's something there about the who knows, maybe I just get really knackered at that point. But anyway, yeah, I want the wattage things, because Strava wattage is just nonsense. I suppose it can't accurately do it because it's not got enough metrics. It's got my weight, and then yeah, but I suppose there's air. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to get some, because everyone's about the watts, aren't they? And I think that's a metric that I could get pleasantly obsessed by. So why am I on the bike? Well, I thought this would be kind of fun. I'm quite interested to see what the results are. So the course I like. I'm going to stick with the course. The camera, fairly happy with that. I think it would be a bit more exciting if I could just have them sort of arms in shot, so I might muck around with that. But yeah, I think this must be my fastest bike. I don't know, like the Rorke on the right day, if I choose the right gear, because it's a fixie, like I think it might be able to do it. I was looking down on the way back, because obviously I go a lot faster with the tailwind on the way back, and I was thinking I have 55/16 on the Rorke, so like a fairly big gear. And I was thinking, yeah, I know I spin out at about 27, maybe 28 miles an hour, but that sort of inertia of the fixie, and probably going this way, the gear would have been perfect, but it would have been a little bit more aerodynamic. Mind you, I've got the Spinergies on. Yeah, it's interesting. Whereas on the Rorke, I've got, what am I going to ride on the Rorke? I think I've kitted it out with a 32 rear track wheel, and then the front has got a 24 on a Wolbert Profile 18. It's like an old vintage rim with like a little, it's got like this tiny aero profile. It's absolutely beautiful, and I made those myself, very proud. The rear wheel on the Rorke has got Sapim, those flat spokes. Yeah, so I don't know. I think on the right day, I think those two will be close. Oh, we're coming up to the turn. Here we go. So nice bit of the turn. Will I get lucky with the car? Will I have to play a dangerous game? If I had the camera on my helmet, I might have had to grasp myself up for a slightly dodgy call here. Nah, it was all right. There was plenty of distance there. No laws were broken in the making of this video. And I've been very reluctant. I don't know how to broach this. There's my head. Oh, we're going to see my head. At least it proves I'm on a fucking bike. Okay, so we've got a slight uphill. I don't know why it's saying minus. Is it minus? Or maybe it is. Maybe it is. And then it kicks up a bit. That's interesting. Yeah. No, okay, yeah, there's a gradient. Okay, maybe it just did a thing. Anyway, so, yeah. What should I say this? I cycle on my own a lot. I suppose I had some level of reluctance of doing cycling videos because 22, so I've picked up a little bit there. Yeah, in my experience, and I am a cyclist, so I'm allowed to say this. In my experience, cyclists can be somewhat pedantic. So I was a bit worried about doing any content on my bike, just because of that possible eventuality. I was expecting. Oh man, Jason, you're digging yourself a hole here, aren't you? You're just inviting it. Yeah, I was expecting something that I hadn't realised that I'd done that contravenes the highway code, and like to just have like a stream of highway code quoted at me. Anyway, stop offending people on bikes, Jason. In my defence, I have cycled far longer than I have run, so I am allowed to say these things. Anyway, 22, so we're picking up a little bit. I think it starts to flatten out. It's really interesting. The stabilisation on my camera is amazing, because that whole bit from the roundabout, I think I did out of the saddle, and you definitely couldn't tell. So here it starts to get a little bit more exciting. 24, I think we get a little bit more sexy than that as well. Yeah, I was quite happy as well, because like I really, what have I done? I've done like a sort of 25 mile ride before this. Did a 16 mile ride yesterday. I just get really bored. I know that longer miles would most definitely make me a faster rider, but in my defence, as soon as Norwich Triathlon's over, my bikes are all going back in the garage. Maybe I should try keeping it going, because it's probably, if I actually trained, it's probably my best discipline. Here we go, we're getting up into some sexy speeds now. 25, can we get up into the 26s? Come on, Jason, put some effort in. I think it was at this point, on the way out, I'd say I was sort of giving it effort, but I was sort of holding back a little bit. 23, there we go, a bit more respectable. Yeah. And then when the wind was on my back, I was like, oh, hang on, I can get a fairly like decent average across the 11 miles, and then my pride started to kick in. So I must remember to turn the speed up, because I think you're going to start to hear the gruntometer coming up slightly, definitely towards the end. I went pretty much all in for the last couple of miles. So I'm going to try and log my effort that I did across the course for the future sort of Brian Rourke rides and the Chaz Roberts bike ride. Oh, I'm really looking forward to Chaz. I'm kind of really excited to see, like, I would say, even though I'm going to ride myself into a bit of fitness, I would expect sort of the Brian Rourke ride to have a little bit of an unfair advantage in a way, because it's probably, I'm not going to do that for about a week. By then I will have been out for a bit more, hopefully a few more miles than 10. And yeah, so it might have a little bit of a bias, then it might plateau. So maybe I should go out on Chaz next. No, that doesn't make any sense, does it? I'll go out on Chaz last. Chaz is just stripped back. I believe it's still legal. It's got brakes and it's a fixie. But like the wheels, I've got 24 spoke on the front onto a Record hub. On the rear I've got, what have I got? I think I use the same rear as the Rourke, because then I'll standardise. Actually, I'll use the same wheels as on the Rourke, because then I'll standardise that, and then at least the Rourke and the Chaz bike will be a bit more evenly matched. But the Chaz bike, like my position, because it's a track bike, it's not low. The Brian Rourke bike, I remember I had it custom made, and I just kept saying, like, I've got really long monkey arms, and I kept saying to the guy, I just want the front end as low as possible. And I'll show you a photo of it when I ride it, but like, it's really, the differential between the seat and where the handlebars are is huge. So like, you can get into a really good 26, nice. Yeah, you can get into like a really decent position with it. The Chaz Roberts is just pure power, because you can't get low. It's like a proper track bike, only like a training track bike. I don't think it's anything posh. But like, I quite like it. I sort of like, you control me about my position, because it isn't particularly low. It looks like I'm almost sitting up, but like, you can really get the power down on it, and it just feels so solid, mainly because it's got about 4 components. Yeah, so like, I just feel like really like joined to it. I like it. It's proper primal. But it's definitely the slowest. If I think of all my PBs, I think Chaz, this Mini came out and they timed it perfectly. If this was actually a time trial, I would be very happy with that Mini pulling out there, because I think I got at least 10, maybe even 15 seconds of drag from it. And it is mental. Like, you can see where the Mini is at the moment. You know, I probably even there, I was still getting a little bit. It just creates this little vacuum, and it's pulling me along. Probably now it's stopped, not sure. Yeah, what are we up? We're up in the 25s and 26s, very nice. What's another thing I do? Oh yeah, so when I'm time trialing, when a car comes past and it's sort of there, I'll instantly step on the pedals, and just try and catch a little bit that drag each time it comes past. Just like, you get sort of, I don't know, you get like little microseconds, and it's not just the pace, but you get a little bit of extra cadence going, and you can get over the pedals just from that tiny little drag. So this is where, I don't know what broad this is, you can just see it off to the left, absolutely stunning. Maybe I should have the camera on the helmet, because just a little look sideways, you would have seen how absolutely stunning the Norfolk Broads are. Maybe I could do like a tourism video as well. Yeah, so at this point, I forgot to put distance on. Oh, bollocks. I was asking ChatGPT to do an overlay, and I suppose actually it's counting up the splits. So you've seen the splits, but I didn't ask it to do distance. That was stupid. I think we must be coming up towards 10 miles, I'm thinking. I think I looked down at 10 miles and it was somewhere around 26, and I remember thinking, oh, that's a bit shit. So in terms of an experiment, probably, like, I would say this course is fairly representative of most single carriageway time trial courses. It's actually, I was riding it thinking this would actually make a really good course, and I don't know, maybe it's been used at some point, but as an out and back it's actually pretty decent. There's a little bit of road surface stuff. I was going through like little ruts, and I was thinking, oh, I wonder if this is going to mess up like the camera stuff, but it hasn't. So like I would hope, if I was doing, like, what would I do? I think I'd definitely be doing a 23. If I was fit and on this, I might even, on a really good day, if I was doing sufficient mileage, get into a 22 or so, but that would probably be about my max. It would be a very high 22 as well. On a dual carriageway, different story. The Rorke has done, I think that was a dual carriageway, has done a low 22, I think. Not sure, might have to check that. But that was a dual carriageway, so it's a completely different beast. You can't really compare those two things. I think it's really hard, isn't it? It's like in running, the conditions can only really make so much difference. Unless it's a straight line run and you had a constant tailwind, running sort of like makes a difference, but not like massive differentials. In cycling, it can be like really quite dramatic. In time trialing days, I used to do like all sorts of courses. You'd go on these, it's mental when I think about it. Everyone would say it's safer, and I never bought that. I think basically it was faster, so everyone created like a whole, 10 miles, at, what did it come up as? Go back to the time. Right, go back to the time. 26, oh yeah, that's a bit shit, isn't it? Okay, so I think as an experiment, I might have to do a little bit of a league table with this, because I'm fairly confident that once I'm a little bit faster and fitter, that I'll fairly comfortably be beating 26 and a half. You'd hope so. And probably if we were giving a little bit of qualitative data to this, I wasn't really pushing it on the way out as well. And I suspect I'm going to get a little bit into this, especially when I'm on old Chaz. I do like an underdog. I think we need to root for Chaz. Like, I'm going to absolutely batter myself. Maybe my complacency on Dave will be punished, because, as we've already established, I really don't like cycling, so I don't know how much of this I've got in me. I did actually quite enjoy this. I think part of the reason is it's really stressful riding on a lot of Norfolk roads, just because of the traffic and all of those sorts of things. Whereas I actually found this pretty stress-free. It was mainly because it was 11 miles. In my defence, the Olympic triathlon is about 25 miles, the Norwich one, and so I just need to be match fit for a 25-mile ride. As well, what are your thoughts on this? Should I just ride on, well, I'm going to have to ride on the Dave Lloyd, because the other ones are illegal. You're not allowed to ride fixed. I did that in a duathlon once, and apparently you can't. I didn't really think it was an advantage. It was like one gear and it's a little bit hilly, but anyway, you're not allowed to. So it would definitely be the Dave Lloyd, but equally, I'm kind of wondering, do I need to sort of build up the Dave Lloyd into, because it is technically a low pro. It's got 700C front and rear, but you can see sort of from the geometry that it's sort of very aggressive and it's a bit lower at the front end. And do I put aero bars on it and bar end shifters on the aero bars? So I haven't quite made up my mind on that. 11 miles, 25.5, lovely. I could have done a really sexy version when I pretended this was the headwind way. Yeah, that would have been believable, wouldn't it? Maybe I'll just do a car version where yeah, I got like really fit, and I've done like a 32 mile an hour average, which I was doing in my car to measure this out to start off with, and I got to like 50 at one point. I was like, really cool if I could cycle this fast. Okay, so I think we're coming up to the end. There's a signpost as you come into, I don't know if it's quite Potter Heigham, but it's a sort of around there, and I'm going to be turning the camera off there. So I think that's fairly decent for Dave, and I think what it's done is created a little bit of a competitive dynamic now, where Brian, I've got a line in the sand, so we've got 29.52, okay, what's it going to finish on? 29.56. We're going to see whether Brian and Chaz can beat it in the future, so I'll come back to that next Sunday. Awesome.